Good evening, everybody. We have a special guest on the show tonight. We have Dale with us tonight, and he's going to tell us about a few things he's doing and some of his encounters and whatever he has to share with us tonight. How you doing, Dale?
I'm doing pretty good. Well, no, actually, I'm not, but I'm here.
Yeah, we have a little time getting used to doing this stuff.
Yeah.
So tell us about yourself and.
Well, my name's Dale Bullock. I'm 68 years old. I live up here in north central Arkansas. Been researching, I guess. My first experience was back in 1973, and for the last 7 years, I've been researching with a couple groups here in Arkansas, and we've had a lot of luck actually.
So your first encounter was in 1973. So
Yeah,
you was a child at the time or a teenager?
I was 17 years old.
All right.
We had a bunch of boys that run around together all the time, and we hunted and fished and everything, And we found an old town. We'd chase each other on dirt bikes and play follow leader and stuff. And we found this old town up in the middle of nowhere, and nobody had ever even heard of it before. And we just figured it was an old Civil War town or something. It's just up on the mountain, and we decided that we'd fix that old cabin. There was one old cabin that was still intact, and we fixed that thing up. Said we'll just use this for a deer hunting site, and we'll have a cabin up here, And we spent a lot of time fixing it up, going back and forth on our dirt bikes. And the first night of deer season, we was going to hunt the next morning, and we had that thing had the windows all boarded up, had the fireplace rebuilt in it, and I mean we were in high cotton, and about just right at 12:30, actually 12:33, I think it was. Everybody had gone to sleep except me. And I was putting more wood on the fireplace, and the walls start shaking, stuff starts hitting the roof, and the next oldest boy jumps up. He goes, "What's going on?" I said, "I don't know." We opened the door, and we got these big red eyes all the way around us, and slammed the doors. Now what we go do? I don't know, because
Yeah.
we didn't know what it was, and none of us had ever heard of Boggy Creek or the Patterson film or anything at the time, and so we ended up. I mean, it was quite a night. We ended up basically shooting our way out of there. We was all up there on dirt bikes, and we ended up just shooting out into the dark. Everybody getting a chance to get on their bikes and get out of there, And we never went back, and we didn't even know what it was. We like all we knew there's some great big old things that run us off our deer camp, and that's all we knew. And we were heavily armed too, and we never told anybody. Never said a word to anybody about it because it's like, what's a bunch of high schoolers going to come down there and say a bunch of monsters chase us off our deer hunting sites, So we all just kept quiet about it, and it just kind of left my memory. I didn't think anything about it, and then we started having stuff happen around here, and I was like, boy, I bet I know what that is, So
Yeah.
that's when I got started in it again. I actually had a group from here in Arkansas come and investigate my own property, and I went with them, and we found tracks and handprints and just a little bit of everything up there on my mountain, and I've been running around with them ever since. We've had a blast.
So that got you started on your journey, seeing them big red eyes.
Oh yeah.
How tall would you say they were up off the ground?
Uh, I wouldn't. I know they were way too tall to be bear or anything else. I mean, they looked like they were 7 or 8 foot off the ground. The eyes were, but it was just pitch black in there where we was at, and all we saw was we shined the light out there. There's eyes everywhere, and we slammed the door and packed up our stuff and got out of there just as quick as we possibly could.
Did you still talk to the guys that you was at camp with that time? As you
No,
scrolled up?
I'm the only one left, as far as I know. The other boy, the next oldest boy, I heard he died a couple of years ago. So I'm the only one left from that little night on the mountain. But we investigate some pretty good sites around here. We have constant activity in a couple of them, and I mean, I'm always surprised, when we watch these shows on TV. These guys go out and they don't find any tracks, they don't hear any sounds, they don't, the BFRO or some of them.
TV shows, the TV shows and stuff. They don't want to find nothing because they're not allowed to show it if they do find it.
Yeah, evidently. But,
and the BRFO is money thing for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we've had some pretty hair raising experiences out there. We got one place where it's not a matter of finding tracks; it's a matter of finding one track that's good enough to cast in the midst of everything else. Because the tracks are going this way, they're going that way, they're different sizes, they're walking on each other, and that place up there is scary. We recently had our last big investigation was up in that area. We call it Area 2. I can't tell you exactly where it's at, because we just don't want anybody up there, messing things up or getting them mad or something. But we've had them come into camp. I've had a couple of them tried to drag me out of my tent. Got punched in the head. Yeah, that was the very first investigation that I ever went with the same group that came investigated my property. I was like, man, I'm going with y'all. This is fun, So we got up there, and it was the very first one I was on, and I ended up being alone in camp. Nobody could find the spot, and the team leader, he went out to lead them in, and so I stayed there with the camp, and kept the fire going and everything. And you hear these people talk about how it goes dead silent out there in the woods.
Oh yeah,
it does. It goes dead silent, and you know exactly what that means when it happens. There's a apex predator somewhere, and so I'm sitting there thinking, I'm praying for the other guys to get back. I was like, boy, I'm scared. I had a big dog with me, and she was scared. She was between my legs under the chair, and she had run around growling in all directions and everything. And I was like, boy, if she starts getting scared and getting under my chair, I got problems here, And everybody finally got in there, and we were sitting around talking and everything, and it got to be around midnight, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna go ahead and turn in, guys, because I was the oldest guy in the group. And I was like, you're not sleeping in a tent, are you? And I said, well, yeah, why not? Like, nobody sleeps in a tent around here. And I'm like, well, I got my dog. I have my weapons with me. I don't have a problem with it. And this one guy, he's kind of our rock crawler and everything. And he says, seriously, he said, nobody sleeps in a tent around here. And I'm like, I'll be cool. I'm good, So I went and climbed in my tent, and I heard coyotes and stuff. I heard coyotes real close to me that night. It was right around 3 a.m. I hear these great big footsteps outside my tent in the leaves. I mean, it was unmistakable. It was bipedal footprint. And I would just crunch, And I raised up, and I mean, it was loud enough it woke me up. And I was like, I must have been dreaming that, It didn't really happen. There's nothing outside my tent. So my dog was just as calm as she could be, and I'm like, well, I must have been dreaming it because she didn't react. And so I laid my head back down, fixed to go back to sleep. And I mean, I must have just dropped off to sleep. And boy, something punched me in the top of the head. And I mean, I saw stars. And then right from the other side of the tent by the door, I hear this big guttural growl. And I'm like, well, there's two of them out there. Well, my dog, she come to life then. She jumps over me, and I grab my pistol out, and I turn it around, and I've got my laser sight on the doorway. Whatever it was went away. And we sat in there for a long time before I opened that door. And I unzipped that thing, and I looked out there, and I was like, well, that might have been some of them crazy guys up around a campfire messing with me, And I peeked up toward the campfire. Campfire's all burned down. There's not a soul up. Everybody's asleep. And I think, boy. And so I peeked down the other way to make sure there wasn't nothing out there. And I couldn't see anything. So, boy, I unzipped that thing, grabbed the guns. Dog and me went and ran for the car, got in, locked the doors. And we stayed that way till right at daylight. And then we made a run for the campfire and threw a bunch of logs on it. And that morning when everybody got up, the van that our team leader was him and the rock crawler guy that we got. They drove up there in a big old van, and they was asleep in the van, and right on the window above where they were sleeping was this great big muddy greasy looking handprint that was about 3 times bigger than my hand. And then I got to looking down there by where my tent was, and there was another one right on the back bumper of my car. And we looked out there on the ground, and there was 2 sets of 17-inch tracks. And we tracked them right down the little old fire road there and saw where they went off the mountain, and they went down the mountain up the other side of the mountain. They just went away, and I'm like, golly, they were right outside my tent like that. But that was a kind of like my trial by fire when I first started with them. They said, well, you don't have to be bait anymore. And I'm like, okay. But yeah, that was but oddly enough, that wasn't nearly as scary as our last investigation was. That beat anything I've ever seen. We tell people all the time, I know you've heard it, it's like, I just want to see one,
Oh yeah, people don't know what they want to wish for.
Yeah, they don't know what they're wishing for because it'll change your life forever.
Yeah,
everything about the woods the same. I don't go hunting on my mountain whatsoever. I don't go up there armed or anything. I don't go up there. And but anyway, we tell people all the time, if you don't believe in them, just come with us sometime, and by morning you'll believe in them. You'll be a knower instead of a believer or a wanderer. And we've had several guys just up and leave in the middle of the night. They just like, we've had enough of this, and they're out of there. But this last time we went up there, we had an area that we had been trying to go up to, forever. The last 2 or 3 years, we've been trying to go up there, and we usually go up there to that area at least twice a year in fall and springtime. And anyway, we got up there, and there's a place that we've been trying to get to. It looks just like a castle. It's a big rock formation, kind of like a cliff, but it looks like an old castle up there on the top of that mountain. And we've tried several times to get there, and it was either because of injuries or the weather, the little river is up too high to get across or something. It was always something, and we never could get there because it's about a 4.5 mile hike back in there. It's pretty treacherous terrain to it. It's hard. And we got back to this last time we went in there, we made it. We got there. And I was like, boy, and we looked around, didn't see anything. And one of the other guys had taken some pictures. He said he found like beds made out of shredded plastic and stuff up in some caves and stuff up there, but his camera, everything on his camera, he said just vanished. Wasn't nothing on it. But we got to looking around. It was a really awesome looking area. It had big old rocks and little tunnels through them and everything. And we got down there toward the bottom, and there was just an old fire trail. I don't know how in the world they ever got anything back in there to make a road, because it's just steep as it can be. But there was a spring that kind of runs along the side of that old fire road there. And I got to looking, and I said, guys, we got to get out of here now. They said, what is it? I said, come look at this. It was the most perfect little 5-inch Bigfoot tracks you've ever seen. And they were just all over in that mud right there where they'd been playing. I said, we're messing with the babies now, and we got to go. So we took off, and of course it's 4.5 miles both ways, and we're getting there. It's starting to get dark on us, and we kind of got surrounded by these 800-pound owls several times on the way back to our camp. And one of the ladies that is with us, she's a trooper, boy. She'll get on out there, but she's like, she's kind of a newbie at it, and she says, those aren't really owls, are they? And our team to her window, Burroughs, he says, not unless he's 1,000-pound owl. But we could smell like skunk on both sides of us. It smelled just like a skunk. And these things were hooting so loud at us, like kind of like a big old barred owl, but they were hooting so loud you could feel it. I mean, you could feel it vibrating in your chest. And so we'd rest as much as we could, and we'd take off again. As soon as we'd stop and rest, the skunks would go on with us every time. And so was the owls. And anyway, we finally got back to camp, and I mean, it was just almost full dark when we got there. Well, the lady that was worried about the owls, her and her fiance, they packed up and they had to go, so they left. The other guy that took the pictures had already left, so that left just me and Wendell, his wife, and a boy named Jay in camp. That was it. And I said, Wendell, are you carrying? He says, I got this little 10 millimeter on my hip. And I said, all I've got's a 9 millimeter with me. And I think, boy, this is not good. We never went up there without, adequate weapons. If something was going to happen, we had the weapons to handle it, And we're a no-kill group. I just want to make that clear. But we're going to defend ourselves when we have to.
Yeah, you have to.
And one of the younger boys and his fiance was going to be back later. Well, I had bought some really nice equipment as far as night vision, thermal, and all that, And I was just kind of playing around with the thermal there, and didn't think a whole lot about it. I was just playing with it. How you look at the trees and everything's glowing and everything. Well, I saw way back over there this young boy's truck coming in. So I was watching him. He was driving through the woods. You could see his headlights and everything. And he made the last corner. And the last corner is like you're driving right along the edge of a cliff. So, you got to be real careful when you come through there. And I just picked the thermal up and put it on his truck. No reason, just looking, just looking at through the thermal. And he made that last corner. And this huge creature jumps out in the road behind his truck and starts chasing it. And we have all that on thermal too. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm like, holy cow, I'm like, look at this, look what's following him, And this thing is just, I mean, it's huge, and it's just jogging behind his truck, right behind his truck, and he doesn't even know it's there. And it got about 30 yards out of camp, and it just kind of jumped off the side of the road and got behind a big old tree down there. Well, now we got every thermal we got out there looking. Now I'm looking, and this thing is still down there behind that tree. and there's a couple sitting on the hill over there from where he came from. And look up here, there's another one up here. Look down there, there's one standing in the middle of the road, the other direction, right down below camp. But we counted 8 of these things were surrounding our camp. And we're starting to panic a little bit because we got two little pistols. That's all we got. And we've got 8 Bigfoot surrounding our camp. And we've already, and every time the fire would die down, they would all get closer. Like they had to have stopped out there. And that's what I was talking to you the other night. I said, those things, they had to have stopped out there and discussed that in the woods, what they were going to do, because you don't just everything move at the same time, you know? And so anyway, we're getting kind of excited about that. And there's me and Wendell, you know, we're the only guys that's standing between them and the camp. And anyway, directly when Braden finally got in there, the young boy that was coming in, first thing we asked him, "Are you carrying?" He said, "I got a 10 millimeter on my hip." They go, "Well, we got 3 pistols now." And he says, "What's going on?" I said, "Man, we got Bigfoots all around us, and they're mad." And so I had set up my tent right there in the middle of camp, and boy, when the temperature started dropping, I said, "Nah, I'm not sleeping in that tent." Now we know we got Bigfoot all around us. I was like, I'm darn sure not sleeping in the tent because of what happened to me last time. I'll never get in a tent again, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, we're sitting there, and we've already decided we've got our chairs pointed 3 directions. And I think whatever comes into camp, drop it. Don't shoot at 3 or 4 of them. Drop the one you're shooting at. And maybe if we bring down 3 of them, they'll decide it's too big of a risk. You know, and so we're sitting there, and it's gotten pretty quiet. And I didn't know Wendell had already made a video that he was going to send out. Like, well, said this is what's happening if we disappear. This is what happened to us, you know. And so I didn't even know he was making that, but we're getting pretty serious about it now, and we're sitting around there real quiet. And of course, we're going back and forth. I'm looking at the different Bigfoots getting close to us. Now one down there on the road, he's got a buddy that comes out there and sits on the hillside by him. And then it gets up and walks out in the road by him, standing by him. So now we've got all these, we know 8 for sure. And they're pretty good size. And my dog, I have a big, it's a Belgian Shepherd. Actually, it's kind of mistaken for a German Shepherd. And he's a Belgian Malloy's Shepherd. And he had already given it up. He was in my tent, in my sleeping bag. And I'm not even thinking about him because he's just in there sound asleep. Well, I'm sitting there watching the ones down on the road. Colt comes out of my tent, all teeth and fur. And I mean, there's one coming into our camp, fixing to get Wendell. It is just feet from him, and my dog bailed right in the middle of this thing, and I'm watching it unfold on the thermal. I didn't push the record button or anything. It was just my eyes seeing it. But this thing, it was going after Wendell. It came up over the cliffs. That's why we didn't see it. It came right up over the cliffs at us. We didn't even think about looking that direction. It's a cliff, you know. What are you going to do, you know? But I'm watching this thing, and my dog is trying to eat the back of his kneecaps out, and it turned around right before it jumped off of the bluff to get away from Colt, and just backhanded him out across the woods. And we say, "Oh, Colt's hurt. I'm not going to go look for him. You know, if he comes back into camp, fine. If he don't, well, you know, he saved us." And he come back into camp a little bit later, limping real bad, and up in that area, it's hard to even get a phone signal. And so now we're looking for somebody that has a bar. somebody got a signal, any kind of signal, and we can't get a phone call out. So finally, the young guy's fiance, her phone has like one bar. I'm like, text Neil, one of our other members. He was at work that night, and he kind of lives in that area somewhere close. But anyway, we said text him, tell him to bring any firewood he's got and every long gun he can get his hands on and get here as quick as he can. And it was about 20, 30 minutes. Here comes Neil bombing. He's driving like crazy down the woods. He jumps out and starts handing deer rifles to everybody, and all of them went away. So evidently they knew that their odds had just changed really bad. And what was crazy is the ones that were down there on the road, Neil drove his truck down there and turned around and came back. And when he went by them, they stepped right off the side of the road. When he came back by, they stepped back out in the road. He was that close to them, and they were so couldn't see him, and he just drove right by him, never noticed they was there. And he pulled up, and we kind of, we didn't even want to try to leave at the time. And we was like, well, we have people say, well, why didn't you just drive out of there? Well, that road right there, about 100 yards from camp, I mean, you can get shoved off of that real easy if something's strong enough. And that's a cliff. You don't want to drop your wheels off the side of that thing. And then that's what we were thinking was that, if they wanted to, they could just bum rush us and shove us right off the cliff. So we're going to try to hang loose and see what happens. But that was a pretty scary night. I think it shook us all up because that's the first time they had ever, their attitude had changed greatly, And I think they were either planning to take somebody or they was going to make an example of us, And pretty scary.
Yeah, I say it would be pretty scary to be trapped like that and then have be surrounded.
Yeah.
When Yins went into their territory where they kept their young and kind of irritated them a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if the attitude is still like that or not. We're planning on going up there again soon. We might get just run out. I don't know. I'm sure they know us. We've been up there a bunch of times in that same spot. So they pretty much know who's there most of the time. And, yep, same guys, But
yeah.
I don't know. They might have just decided they'd had all they want of us, and I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, they definitely know who Yins are. Yins been going to the same area for a while. Don't take them long to pick up on that. Who you are and what your intentions are.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure they knew we only had 2 guns. I think they knew that somehow. And if it's the same ones that followed us out of the woods for 4 miles, they probably knew exactly what we have with us.
Yeah.
I don't know how much they understand about stuff like that, but I think they knew that when our other members started handing out guns, I think they think, well, we better not try this. Somebody's going to get hurt, But
there's weighing their potential of how well can we get enough of them before they get a couple of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it was kind of unusual because most of the time, in fact, every time I've ever been, people had shotguns in the trucks and 45-70s and 460 revolvers and just some pretty good sized weapons. And that time, all we had was 2 pistols. And I don't know how in the world we messed up that bad, but we did, and it almost cost us.
Well, that's like when I go out and stuff. Yeah, that's all I usually got on me is a pistol.
Yeah.
But sometimes I don't take it. But if I'm like down in Salt Fork in the state park, if you don't have a concealed carry, you're not allowed to carry it on you.
Yeah,
you can have one with you. You can have it with you, but you can't carry it on you. And in the state of Ohio, there's open carry. You have to, if you don't have it concealed, you can carry it open. But in the park, they don't want you carrying it open because then you might cause people to start panicking if they see a weapon.
Yeah.
And if you don't have it concealed, you can't cover it. So,
Well, I know a lot of those parks like that have rules against even metal detectors, which really surprised me. I didn't know that until I
yeah,
pulled
you're
out a
not.
metal detector and started using it. The game warden come by and said, "You better get rid of that right now, son." I'm like, "What?" I didn't know what he's talking about. And he said, "Metal detector's not allowed in here." I was like, "Really?"
Yeah, on
Well, like
state property. But if it's like county or city, that's up to them.
Mhm.
But yeah, on state property or federal property, you either have to have a permit or they're not allowed.
Yeah. But
It's
we've
crazy
had
about
some
some of the rules.
we've had some pretty hair raising encounters. I think we're the, as far as I know, and I took what I'm going to tell you about. I took those down to a Bigfoot conference down in Oklahoma, and none of them had ever seen them before. But we actually found primitive weapons, which was kind of wild. We were investigating an area that had a, a like a family cabin that had been in like 5 generations, down in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
and they had stopped using this cabin because every time they tried to stay in this cabin at night, the rocks and stuff would hit the roof, and it scared everybody off, and they didn't want to go back. So we went back in there we're kind of like a jump team. We go back in there, and if somebody's got a problem, we go look for it and see what it is, And we got back in there, and we found Wendell Burroughs. He found a game chute, which was kind of I didn't even see it, and Wendell picked it up and he said, "Hey, look at this!" And he called me up there, and I went up there. Well, it was a chute, and these trees were laying on top of each other, and they were looked like 30, 40 yards wide at the one end, and then they went all the way down to about 10 foot together at the other end. And I mean, you could tell that was a game chute. Somebody was running game through there, running it down to that choke point. And I was just kind of admiring that. I'm like, that's amazing. That's how else could this happen? You know. And I got down there and looking, I saw something white sticking out of the ground, and I found these two big old weapons buried up in the mud. So something had thrown them things really hard at something. And I guess they had been using those things to kill deer or whatever came down the game chute. I don't know. But it's the first time I'd ever seen them. There was an expert down there at the conference down there in Oklahoma, and he was telling me all these things. They're Aztec and all that stuff. And I said, well, I haven't ever seen any Aztecs up in northern Arkansas. I don't know if they ever did. There's no record of it. And but he's telling me all this stuff, and I said, well, I'm not saying Bigfoot made these. I'm not saying the American Indians made these. I don't know if the Aztecs has ever been there and lost their weapons, but I do know who was using them. I said there wasn't no Aztecs, there wasn't no American Indians. I said, and it, you know, I said, anyway, I'm making them laugh. They thought that was quite funny. And I said, really? I said, I've had favorite knives before. If I can keep that knife in my pocket 10 years without losing it, it's a miracle. I was, they were telling me somebody lost their weapon 1,500 years ago and I found it. I don't think so. Didn't even make
Yeah.
sense. But anyway, but they're pretty impressive. They could hurt you.
Well, they're made out of rock or flint or.
Yeah, they're made out of it looks like some kind of white basalt or something. It's they're one of them is you can tell it's actually been sharpened. You can see the bevel on both sides of it, and it looks like a They was telling me it was like an Aztec battle axe. I said, well, I can do the battle axe part, but I don't think it's Aztec, not up here in northern Arkansas. But it's what it looked like. It is. It's got a hook on the back side of it. It looks like it's been sharpened out, and the whole front of it is beveled, and it's about 13, 14 inches long. And then the other one looks like like a big old blade that you threw. You know, it's like almost like a discus, but it's sharp on one side all the way around, and it's about the same size, about a little bit bigger than a bowling ball, probably the diameter of it. But it comes down and looks like where there's some place you can hold on to it to throw it. There you can tell it's got what we call impact cracks on it where it's actually been thrown and hit something.
Yeah.
The edge is still good, but you can see where it's cracked, where it's hit something real hard. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Like to see them someday.
If they wasn't out of my truck, I'd go get them and hold them up to the camera and let you look at them.
All right. So, what have you found about any different kinds of structures in your area than other parts of the country, or?
Oh, it's we found quite a few structures. We got one place that we go to we've got all kinds of activity, but not many structures. And then we got one place we go to that has all kind of activity, but it's got a lot of structures too. I mean, there's Area X we got up there. It's there's a massive X. I mean, it's massive. It must be 50-foot tall. Trees must be 18-inch diameter. And but we were here just recently. We found a great big X laying on the ground that blocked off the road that we were trying to go down. And boy, that's something you don't see every day. We found one place up there that had a structure. It was right by our camp actually, which kind of surprised us. But it had one tree was perfectly broken off. Both trees were. One of them was pushed over. The other one had been brought in, and it was perfectly balanced on the end of that one. It was snapped off clean, and that tree was standing right on the end of it. They were just standing straight up. And underneath that looked like a great big deer scrape. So we're thinking probably something was standing there and kind of watching us, and had kicked all the leaves out, and had just been standing there looking at our camp all night. But we find stuff like that quite often. And something that we found here just recently that we never had even seen before, but it was up that camp, and one of the guys that hadn't been out there very many times, and he says, "Boy, that looks like a tree house." Well, we got up looking, and there was a place way up in the top of the trees, and it looked like it had been made. It was like a big leaf tree house up the top of this. And over here about another 100 yards to the south was another one just like it. And they were about 150 yards from our camp. So, they could have been sitting up in them tree houses the whole time. At night or day or either one, we'd never seen them, And they were actually, like the bark was peeled on the sides of the tree where something had been climbing it. And these big old leaf tree houses at the top, probably 6 or 7 foot around, diameter.
Yeah.
And that was something we'd never seen before or ever noticed. So we're thinking that's something we need to look for now. We also have something that when you're out researching, you need to look for them, because we seem to get a lot of response. We call them thunder trees, and what they are is they're just hollow trees. And when you hit them with a rock or something, you could hear that sound echo all the way through the forest. And we're kind of thinking that maybe when we hear these wood knocks, that's what we're
Yeah.
hearing. It's in
Could
different locations, these thunder trees, where they can communicate.
could very well be. Yeah, they do some strange stuff that we're just finding bits and pieces here and there of different stuff, newer stuff that nobody else has heard or seen about or haven't told about, or because a lot of people don't share information like they should. But I understand why, because all the ridicule and being called a hoaxer and liars, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to get people to come out with what they find. And
Yeah,
but here
I tell
recently
you,
it's starting.
yeah, that's what we get. We get a lot. We've heard that from so many people. Like they call up and say, "Would y'all please come out here and check this place out? Because we saw something, and my family thinks I'm crazy." You know, and so they want us to come out and verify that they actually did see something, and they're not crazy. That's what we get. We get calls like that all the time, and we'll pop on out there and see what we can find. And what makes it good too, because if somebody says they see something, first thing they're going to do is like, I saw him right over there.
Yeah,
Well, you got a starting place. If you're any kind
yeah,
of tracker at all, you can pick up something real quick. And so that's kind of what we do. We've cast several great big prints. So we actually found some three-toed prints. That was strange. We'd never seen them before. And that was like the Boggy Creek monster. It three-toed like that.
yeah. That's what they
And
say.
evidently it
That
must be aggressive because we tracked it. We were out in the swamps for a couple hours. I mean, wading the swamps, and picked up these tracks and kept following them. Finally found one right on a little old knoll out there in the middle of the swamps. So I said, well, we've got a three-toe track over here. So we got to looking, and I think, well, there's got to be a trap accident or something. This thing's only got three toes. It's 19 and a half inches long.
wow.
Yeah. And pretty soon, our team leader, Wendell, he made a big circle around me. He goes, I got a trackway. And this thing evidently had left the woods when we came in because it went to the bean fields. It headed right out, but it left and right prints, three toes. And so we went back again and we found smaller tracks with three toes. So we know there's a breeding population up there of three-toed creatures. And
Yeah,
we've been told by people, stay away from them. Them will kill you. Don't want to mess with the three-toed ones. I don't know. I'm not too
I
thrilled
don't,
to go out there much.
I don't know about if you can tell by the identification of the feet or not, but yeah, there is a couple type that you do not want to mess with.
Yeah.
The Galway, and then there's the other ones that's they're like I think they call them the rock people, or
Yeah.
uh,
Like the ones in
both of
Vietnam.
them. Yeah, both of them they're both cannibals. They're cannibalistic, and plus the humans is on their list to eat too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I heard from several people around the country, though, when they'd seen we had three-toed tracks, they told us to leave them alone. So I don't know. Kind of gives me the creeps, I don't know. At least
Yeah,
them other ones, I know they're just great big hairy people, and at least they got five toes, and it kind of a strange experience. But I thought that we didn't have, that's the only thing we found, or we didn't hear any sounds or anything last time. But to find the different size tracks, that one was 19 and a half, and the ones we found up there was like 13. So we know,
the
they're in there.
smaller
They're
ones
in
and larger ones. Yeah,
there. Yep. And we had one place up in there that's the crow flies, probably 5 miles from there. We went in there and we were finding tracks and stuff out there in the woods. And we were just sitting out there, just kind of discussing things, just talking. Here comes this log flying through the trees. And this log is about 4 inches diameter, about 5, 6 foot long. Swoosh, 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 like a big tomahawk. Flying through the air. I mean, coming through the trees. I'm like, what in the world could pick up a log that size and throw it? I mean, throw it that hard. And then we actually got pictures that day of something that it looked like a white creature of some sort. And I had seen one of them was tree peeking me that I'd been kind of sneaking up on. And once I got close enough to use my binoculars on him, and then he just up and left. And then right after that, the log came flying through the air. So we went back up there recently, and the Forestry Commission had came in there and clear cut that whole area. Clear cut it. I mean, down to the mud. And left
Well,
the
they
trees
knew something was there.
and left the logs laying. They didn't take them.
Yeah.
Didn't use them. They just cut them all down. You can't
They
find a
know
deer
something.
track in there now.
Yeah. They know there's something there, so they destroyed the woods so it move on.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what they did.
Yep. Well, it's a little over an hour now, bub.
Well, all righty.
We'll have you on the show again. I sure appreciate it, and I enjoyed every bit of your knowledge you sharing.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Sure, we'll get together sometime soon again.
Oh yeah, we'll make we got a camp out here in a week or so down at Salt Fork for the weekend. Well, 2 weekends from now. It was, and we're going to have night investigations and stuff down there. We usually have a lot of encounters and sightings and find footprints and structures and all that down in that area.
Well, that's always fun then. Yeah, what kind of equipment you use at night?
Well, we got night vision camera, and I use hearing aid devices and recorders. But there's other groups and other people come there. It's usually they have all kinds of equipment. They have thermal imaging and everything with them.
I recently got one that night vision that I bought it as a kit that had the big illuminator and everything with it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say brand names on here, am I?
Well, this is a podcast. It's not censored as much as if it was on YouTube.
But anyway, it's a night vision I bought. Starts with an S. This thing sees in color.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sees in color. That's amazing. From about 200 yards out.
That's a good one.
Oh, it is. It's a good one.
All right, we're going to end the show here, and we very well appreciate you being on the show, and love to have you back on as soon as we get around to getting it, work this all back out and get it together again.
All right. Well, you have a good evening, Ken. God bless you.
You too. God bless you, and we'll catch you all later.
Okay. Bye-bye.